Good afternoon and welcome to the UC Davis Extension Executive Leadership Program information session live from Davis, California. This is Sharon Huntsman. I'm the director of the UC Davis Executive Leadership Program. I'm joined by my colleague, Bridget Saragosa, who's running this webinar for us. And a little bit later today, we'll have an instructor and an alumni of the program here because we want you to have a really good array of people to pose questions to that you might have about the executive program and whether or not it's the right program for you. That's the reason that we do this webinar. We want people who are thinking about investing in their leadership to make a really strong choice about how they want to go about doing that. So what I'll do in this session, I'll do a little bit of a fun poll to get us started, and then I'll talk about what makes this program valuable and distinctive. And then I'm going to hand it over to Paul Porter. He's one of our instructors and coaches in this program. He is going to run through what he does in his day of the program, as well as introduce some leadership themes in the form of a short quiz just for fun. And then one of our alumni from the last program that we ran, Stephanie Flood, is going to share her perspective on what she got out of the program, why she went into it, and how it's made a difference for her. And then we've got time for your questions at the end, but I also want to invite you at any time during the program that we're running today, please feel free to enter a question into the Q&A box. There should be a Q&A box in your Zoom panel. On the right-hand side of your screen, I believe. And if you queue up questions there, we'll be able to see them and we'll try to answer them as well as we go through. Okay, so to get started, I want to do a quick little poll here on what are your priorities. So when you think about your leadership development, what is your most important leadership development priority right now? We've got 5 choices that are there for you to consider. Is it motivating and engaging people? So, is engagement really your issue that you want to be working on? Is it innovation, getting more ideas forward and getting those ideas put into action? Is it your influence as a leader, how people are perceiving you as a leader and their commitment to where it is you're trying to lead the organization? Is it change? Is your organization going through adapting to changes that were already underway or identifying the next change that you want to drive for the organization? And then finally, is it about the vision? Is there a vision for the organization and it's your role to really right now be aligning people to that vision? So take a look at those and give us your vote on what is the most important leadership development priority that you have right now. It looks like about 60% of you have voted, so some of you are still mulling this one. Oh, now we're getting high. We're almost to 80%. Terrific. I bet that some of you are sitting there thinking, can I check all of these boxes? All right, why don't we go ahead and publish the poll results. Where did we land, Bridget? Okay, it looks like the top vote getter is motivating and engaging people to excel. So that's terrific. And that's actually different than I think it was last time we did this webinar. So that's kind of cool. People are really thinking about how do they really get that discretionary level of effort from the people that they have on their team, which is a fantastic place to be. And truly all of these topics are a part of our executive leadership program. So no matter what question you answered, you're in the right spot. So I just want to let you know a little bit about how we define leadership in this program. There are lots of different books on the shelf about what is leadership and how to do it. The way that we think about leadership in the program is, first and foremost, leaders are guides to the organization's future. We really don't expect people on the front lines to guide us toward the future, but we sure bet, and we sure expect our leaders to do that. We really want them to help the organization get to what is next, to address challenges and to overcome them. To help the organization and its people be resilient when things are tough, and to lead the change. So we look at leaders as guides. We also look at leaders as the kind of people that others are going to willingly follow. And this probably makes intuitive sense to everyone on this webinar. When you think about who you would follow, you probably think about someone who leads with a lot of respect, a lot of emotional intelligence. They probably demonstrate a really high commitment to the organization and its people, and that's why you're willing to follow where it is that they want to guide the organization. So this is our dual definition. And I think what's really interesting about the executive program, this definition tends to resonate a lot. And we usually find people joining us who are really interested in getting better at leading. No matter where we all are as leaders, we can always get better. These are leadership skills are a learnable set of skills that aren't necessarily innate. And so I think one of the things that's really true is that people find themselves in these sessions that we have with a bunch of people who are all committed to this definition and getting better wherever they are. So there are three distinctive elements of this program. The first is that we meet for 8 Thursday afternoons. Over an 8-week period, we have 8 sessions. They are highly interactive. They are taught by instructors who are selected not only for their knowledge of the subject matter, but also their experience operating at an executive level themselves. So they really bring not only the content, but also the experiential lessons learned of how to be effective in the role of a senior leader in an organization. The second piece of this program is getting 360-degree feedback. And what that looks like is we use an online instrument, and you do your own self-assessment of how frequently you see yourself engaging in leadership behaviors. And then you invite 10 to 12 people to 15, people who you trust to give you developmental feedback that would help you to grow as a leader. And then the third piece of this program is getting a chance to work with an executive coach. We have 4 executive coaches in this program, and each participant gets 2 one-on-one sessions with an executive coach who is just focused on helping you define your goals, how you want to grow, and helping you come up with your own plan of how you're going to get there. So now I want to hand it over to Dr. Paul Porter. He teaches our first day in the executive program. It's called the Leader as Communicator. He's also one of the coaches in our executive program. And Paul's going to share a little bit about what he teaches in his program and then also introduce some leadership themes. Paul, welcome to our live info session. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Sharon. Well, I'll start off with a few words about the very first session. I don't think it's any coincidence that we start off with the leader as communicator. And we kind of feel that communication is the basis of leadership. And maybe an interesting way to look at communication is leadership is a series of communications, a series of conversations. So how you do minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day in your conversations is really what leadership is all about. And so in this first session, we will look at various communication styles. We'll talk about leadership styles also, and what might be not just interesting looking at various styles, but what kind of style might work best in certain situations with certain people. So we're going to really take a look at that. And as with most of our sessions, we're going to do an assessment of your leadership and communication style and talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to get into a little bit of what we call Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott and talk about some models for being authentic and communicating very deeply with people. And we'll kind of end that very first session with some practice of communication coaching model that you could use, take back, use it immediately in your work. So we really think that this is a good kickoff to get you thinking about the whole series and also about communication and leadership. So, yep. So we thought we'd roll in now to a little quiz. We're just going to have some fun with this. You don't have to get them all right or anything. So we've got 5 questions. Think about these, and then I'll share with you the answers. Number 1, the best leaders are the ones who communicate precisely the right words. Number 2, the main function of coaching, true or false, is to carefully monitor others you are coaching and make sure they don't make errors. True or false? Number 3, change occurs most often when people are presented with clear and accurate factual information. True or false? Number 4, the best leaders treat everyone the same and are well-rounded. And our final question for you to ponder, true or false? According to Daniel Goldman, 80 to 85% of what distinguishes a good leader from a great leader is their cognitive ability. So ponder those for a second here.
Those are great questions, Paul.
Okay, great. Well, I'm trying to get you to think out of the box here a little bit. So let's go through them. Number 1, the best leaders are the ones who communicate using precisely the right words. Well, no, false. Most research on communication indicates that 80 to 93% of our communication is in other than the words that we use. Our intonation, our body language, our gestures, and we'll be looking at some advanced techniques for getting better at that. Number 2, the main function of coaching is to carefully monitor others you are coaching and make sure they don't make errors. So I almost have to snicker with this one because that is false. Of course, I'm sure this didn't puzzle many of you. One of the keys to effective coaching is helping others to reflect on their own effectiveness by asking powerful questions and slowly being less directive. So when we have a funny saying, learn to be less helpful at times. Question number 3, true or false? Change occurs when people are presented with clear and accurate factual information. Well, that's partially true. Partially true is the answer to this one, because information is indeed important in the change process. But we have learned over many decades of studying change that change must also appeal to people's values, beliefs, sense of urgency, and ownership. And we will study that in this series.
Which explains why when we send the email 3 times, they still don't get it.
Yeah. And then we as leaders say, I sent you an email.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we start learning. Yeah. Terrific. Yeah. Okay.
Question 4, the best leaders treat everyone the same and are well-rounded. Well, false again. Good leaders treat each person a bit differently, actually, and follow what many of you may know as the platinum rule, and that is that they should treat people like the people, would like to be treated. And another shocking bit of information, good leaders are not well-rounded. Their teams are. And the final question, see how you did here. True or false, according to Daniel Goldman, 80 to 85% of what distinguishes a good leader from a great leader is cognitive ability, intelligence. That is false. According to Daniel Goldman, who is the author of Emotional Intelligence, that we will study quite a bit in this series, he says 80 to 85% is due to the emotional intelligence of the leader. And we'll talk about how it could really work to improve that. So I hope we tickled your cognitive abilities a little bit with our quiz.
That's terrific. Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
So now this is Sharon Huntsman again. I'm going to go through the other 7 days of this program so you know what to expect from it. So the second day of the program, I teach the session Leadership Practices to Increase Effectiveness. I'm also one of the coaches in the program. And in this session, what I really focus in on is understanding the basis for the Leadership Practices Inventory Instrument. So what is it that leaders do that makes them more effective than people who are not practicing the 30 behaviors that are being assessed? And we really spend a good deal of time in this session on your vision of where you want to take the part of the organization that you are leading and your values, how you want your values to really guide who you are as a leader and how you show up and how you're leading people toward that vision. So that's the second day. You do get your 360 feedback in that day. And the instrument that we use, as I mentioned before, is called the Leadership Practices Inventory. It is one of the most widely researched and widely used assessments. It looks at 5 different practices of exemplary leadership. And you get some really actionable feedback from this on what you can perhaps do more of, dial up a little bit, if you will, in your leadership. You'll also find out what you're already doing really well that people are counting on you to do and what you should keep doing. And some things that you might need to dial back, some things where you may be overplaying a strength or inhibiting the ability of your leadership to be truly effective. Then the next session, we spend a whole day with Dr. Mitchell Adler on emotional intelligence, which was, as Paul noted earlier, in the research is proven to be so critical to leaders' effectiveness. Having that cognitive ability you must have as well, but what differentiates the top performers in leadership is often their ability to be emotionally savvy, to understand the social context, to understand their emotional impact on the people that they're leading. So Dr. Adler will help us to understand what we can do to be more self-aware, what we can do to be better at self-managing, that's sort of the regulating part of emotional intelligence, how to be more socially aware, and how to improve our own ability to manage our relations in the workplace using our emotional intelligence. I think one of my favorite things about Dr. Adler, too, that I mention all the time is that he really begins with the importance of self-care. If you are not taking care of yourself and managing your own stress level and managing your own emotional life as a leader, it's going to be very hard for you to be effective in leading others. And I think that's a really important message for all of us to hear in life, and especially those who are in leadership roles. And then our next session is on innovation. And we have Christine Folk, who is, I would call her a serial innovator. She leads innovation at Vision Services Plan, which people who might be familiar with VSP here in Sacramento might know that they have their own innovation shop in Midtown. And so she's in the thick of leading innovation, and she really looks at it from a very practical perspective. So for anyone who thinks, innovation doesn't really apply to me or my organization, I think Christine does a great job of breaking down innovation into a digestible topic of, what does somebody who needs to support innovation do differently in their organization to really make sure that ideas can come to fruition? How do you encourage a culture that supports idea generation? How do you help the rest of the organization accept these new ideas and not be threatened by them? And she's just a terrific facilitator, so she's super fun to have in the program. Then we do a whole day on coaching skills. Now, Dr. Porter will introduce coaching skills in the first day on leadership communication, but Michelle will do a deeper dive and really break down the skills of coaching that executive coaches use with their clients in order to be effective. So she's really going to work on listening as a coach, listening and asking powerful questions in combination as a really powerful way to coach others. And I think Michelle's ultimate gift to all of our participants is to give you some skills to create better critical thinkers in your team. So the people who are coming to you with problems get coaching that forces them to think through and come to their own answers that makes them really more effective and less dependent on you as a leader. And then we move to leading change. So in this session, it's not theoretical at all. I will say we spend a pretty healthy amount of time looking at the reasons that most change efforts fail and the key interventions that John Kotter, John Kotter from Harvard, as well as others have really found makes a difference when you're leading change. But you'll also work on your own change efforts. So in the previous session on innovation, you probably will come away with an idea of something that you want to innovate around, or you may have come into the program with a change that you are already leading. And so in this session, Steve Scott will work with all of us on how do you take that those principles of making change more durable and effective, and apply those to the change effort that you want to lead. Then we have a session with Elizabeth Doty, who's an author and consultant, and she leads this session on values and commitments and organizational momentum, which is a really interesting topic, and it's a very unique topic that we really, I think, are the only program that has something like this. Elizabeth has this concept of organizational momentum, that you can be in an organization where you are hitting your goals, where people are highly engaged, and as a leader, your job is to figure out, how do I not let us become complacent and take it to the next level? You can also have an organization where there's more of a downward spiral, where the momentum is heading in the wrong direction. And then your job as a leader is to figure out, how do I stop this momentum where it's at and reverse it and get it on a more positive trajectory? So she's going to give you the skills that she uses when she's consulting with her clients to diagnose, where is my part of the organization at right now? Are we on an upward spiral, or are we is our momentum growing, or are we sort of in a downward trajectory? And then how to make requests of people in your organization that will help them help you to change the momentum. And so she does this workshop and practices making fewer, better commitments to the kind of momentum that you want to have in the organization. It's a really powerful session. And then in our last session, I apologize, my picture here of Daryl Chambliss is terrible, but he looks much better in person. Daryl Chambliss is both an alum of this program and the COO of Waste Connections. He's their executive vice president as well. And he leads a case study as our last session. And what's fun about this case study is it's a live case study. So what he's going to do is walk you through 4 pivotal moments in the evolution of Waste Connection. And they're really critical incidents, really tough situations that he faced as a leader. And you will, in groups, discuss how you would address that kind of a situation. And then he'll share what he did, what he got right, what he got wrong, and what he learned from it. So it's a nice way to wrap up the program, where you get to apply kind of everything that we've talked about to some of the situations that this one company and this one leader have faced. And we're really grateful that Daryl continues to give back to the program in this way as one of our distinguished alumni. So now I want to introduce to you one of our other distinguished alumni, Stephanie Flood, who is the VP of Operations for RE/MAX Gold. And she was in our program this last fall, and we've asked her to come and to share a little bit about her experience. And Stephanie, I just want to get started by asking you, what was going on for you in your career that you decided to take these 8 weeks out and invest in your own leadership?
It was a really great time for me. Within our organization, I knew that I had the potential to be promoted to my current position as Vice President of Operations from Director of Operations that I had the position I'd held for the prior 2 years. And in order to really get to that point, I knew that I had to take my skills as a leader to the next level. And my goal was that by going through the program that I would be able to ascend to that next position. And about, 3/4 of the way through the program, I actually was promoted to Vice President of Operations, which was a lot of fun to share with my classmates actually and celebrate it together.
Yes, there was a big round of high fives, as I recall.
Yes.
At that moment. And Stephanie, what was most valuable across the 8 sessions? There are these different components to the program. What was most valuable to you as a participant?
It is so hard to choose, especially hearing the list of classes all over again, because I took something from each one. But I have to say, I really took two things. My favorite session was Michelle's class to lead as a coach. I quote Michelle on an almost daily basis. It really hit home with me that our job as leaders is to develop critical thinkers. And I apply that to everything that I do about how I interact with my team and other people in the organization, that's my goal every day. And I love that. The second thing that I would add, though it's not going to be on a course curriculum or a syllabus anywhere, is the sense of community that gets developed among the participants. Because just in the first day's class, it was so nice to realize I am not alone. It's not just me that's facing these challenges, and to just realize that everyone else is looking for similar answers, even though they come from different backgrounds and different environments. And just to be able to talk through so much stuff with other people and to learn from them as well.
Yeah, I think that's also such an eye-opener for everyone, that there's, even though people come from such different industries, and small organizations, large organizations, public sector, private sector, everyone in the room is leading a lot of people, and people are people everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. And can you say anything about the impact that you feel like you're having now, having invested some time in your own leadership development? I mean, what kinds of results do you feel like you're getting?
I feel like as I've moved into the role that I have now, that I have learned so much about how to interact with people. And I feel like just every day I handle myself differently and I think through things before I give answers. My favorite example most recently is just something so simple that I really learned in the program, that not giving an answer right away is okay, or being quiet, or saying you need to think about something, or putting the question to the person with whom you are meeting, that all of that is okay. And it's really changed how I interact with other people. And I feel like it's really raised my game just with that one thing as an example. And I find that pretty regularly I go back through my binder from class and go back and read my notes and try to find things that I am doing or that I'm not doing, or things that I want to do better, so that I can continue to learn from what I did learn in class.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That's great. I hope that gives the folks who are here on our webinar a feel for the alumni perspective. And if anyone has any further questions for Stephanie or for Paul Porter or for me, we're going to have some time in just a moment to answer some questions. I know a few have come in already. I do also just want to give some of the nuts and bolts of this program. So we do design it for people who are busy. You don't have to give up 10 days and go away and be in residence somewhere in order to go through an executive program. What we've done is we've carved out 8 Thursday afternoons and evenings. So it starts on March 29th and it goes through May 17th. And every week you spend Thursday afternoon and evening together. And we provide you with dinner, with coffee, with parking, with all of your materials to make it really easy for you to give yourself the gift of taking some time to think about how you are leading and to decide what, if any, changes you want to make to that in order to become more effective. The sessions, I think, are really well paced. It's definitely intensive because you're doing a different topic every week, but there is some time between each session to apply what you're learning. And what we know from the research on learning and development is that if you don't apply it right away, you will not retain it. Most people, this is true. The retention level is very, very low. So at the end of each session, we think about, okay, how am I going to apply this in the next week? And you set up your own plan for how you're going to do that. And when we come back together, we always debrief that a little bit, like what's working, what's not working, what successes can we celebrate that people have had. And we often have a lot of really good fun and high fives around that. And of course, we do have this executive coaching that supports your growth, and we schedule those sessions times that are convenient for you. So you have lots of times to choose from to work with the 4 coaches that we have in the program. So that's a little bit more about the design of the program. Some other nuts and bolts. We have the tuition is $5,950, and that is including everything that you get, and that's quite a deal. A lot of programs are more expensive, and we've really tried to keep this one accessible as much as we can. You do get a little bonus if you enroll in the program. So if you apply and you're accepted and you enroll in the program prior to February 15th, so a little under a month from now, then you get a $300 off discount. The ultimate enrollment deadline is March 16th. So we really can't accept anyone else into the program after that date, because we need you to complete your 360 assessment by March 29th. And that does take some time for you to go online and to invite other people and give them some time to give you some feedback so that we can have it ready for you in class. I will say that this program in the last couple of years has tended to fill up either right on the February 15th enrollment discount, everyone's getting theirs in to take advantage of that, or shortly thereafter. So if this is something that you think is right for you, I really encourage you to apply right away and save your spot. Okay, so now let's see, what kinds of questions do people have? Bridget, what are you hearing?
Well, we have one question that came in, and that is this program recommended for someone who doesn't have MBA or professional leadership experience?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So, and I get this question both from people who don't have an MBA and from people who do have an MBA who want to make sure that it's not going to be duplicative of what they've already studied. So I think one of the best ways to answer that is to say that we've had a lot of people who do have MBAs go through the program, because leadership is often not something that you get a chance to focus in on when you're going through an MBA program. Or maybe you went through an MBA program and you did take a class on leadership, but it was before you actually had a senior level of responsibility. And it's been 15 years and you really want to have a refresher. So there's no prerequisite to be in this executive program other than having responsibility for leading a large number of people, as well as, having that sort of senior manager level of responsibility. And that's really because the way that these topics are taught, they're really taught to that level and to the issues and concerns that people have at that level in an organization.
Great. Next question is, can you elaborate on the 360 assessment?
Sure. So the 360, the Leadership Practices Inventory, is the tool that we use. The instrument has 30 questions in it that they cover the 5 different behaviors that we were talking about. And actually don't look at the screen too quickly. Don't mean to give you seasickness here as I go back. So the 30 questions are about behaviors in these 5 different practices. So are you someone who models the way of what you expect of a leader in this organization? Are you someone who inspires others toward a shared vision for the organization? Are you someone who challenges the process, who says, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we have to do it that way? How can we be better? Are you someone who enables others to act, who creates more autonomy in the organization and the people who report to you? And are you someone who encourages the heart? Are you someone who connects with people, who celebrates people, celebrates the wins, appreciates people? So there are behaviors that are measured, and what the raters do is they look at how frequently do they see you engaging in this kind of behavior. And I think people in general find it to be really valuable feedback. And I actually kind of want to invite Stephanie to comment on this. Stephanie, do you want to say anything more about the 360?
Yeah, that was a really fantastic thing to get, and the way that you guys set it, the way it's set up in order in the program really makes sense, because you're kind of prepared for it by the time that you get it. What I found is that the people that actually take the exam for you, that rate you, give comments at the end. And while the ratings were helpful, I found, and I discovered this with a lot of people in our group, is that we rank ourselves much more harshly than those around us.
Yeah.
But it was in the free form comments that I was able to learn a tremendous amount of where I needed to get better and what I could do and what things were not working properly for my team. And I was able to take a lot of those and act on those exact things and implement change. And they were able to see that. So it was so incredibly useful.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. There is a combination of qualitative as well as quantitative feedback in that 360. So hopefully that answered the question on the 360, but if there's another one, feel free to add in. And I see that there's another question coming in on how big is the program. So we cap the program at 28. And I can tell people right now we are at this point half full for the program that starts March 29th. It's intimate enough that you get to know everybody in the program.
Next question, for anyone whose employer is not willing to sponsor, does UC Davis Extension offer any finance or payment schemes for anyone who wants to self-fund this class?
This is a great question. Most of the participants in the program are funded by their employers as part of the company's succession planning. And some people do invest in themselves and go through the program. And if you can, I'm going to share my email at the end of this webinar, and I can connect you. There is a financial aid. There's someone at Extension who manages our financial aid who can assist you with getting access potentially to a private loan. But we also don't have a payment plan for this program, and it's a function of the fact that there's such an investment in the upfront cost of running a 360 and having the coaching available that we require payment at the time of starting the program. Yeah.
Our next question, how would you define a large group of people in an organization? I work for an organization with a total of 16 people and lead a department of 6 people. Would this be appropriate for me as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think that the bulk of people going through the program tend to be managers. So they have been managing and leading people for probably about 5 years at least, and they're looking at sort of going on to the next level of leadership or getting better at where they're at right now. I'd say in terms of the size of the organization, we have had people in very, very large organizations. We have people from UC Davis, which is one of the largest organizations. And we have people from very small businesses and people, so maybe they're just managing like 2 or 3 other people. So there isn't like a minimum size or anything like that that makes this the right program for you. I think it's really about, do you have ultimate responsibility for setting the direction of where you're going to want to learn about leading change? Are you tasked with innovating within your part of the organization? Is emotional intelligence an area where you really want to be able to invest in yourself? I think that's probably a better gauge rather than saying, oh, you have to be leading a team of at least this many people in order to be in this program. It's really about making sure that the content is going to speak to the kind of responsibility that you have. So I hope I answered that well. Paul, is there anything that you would add to that from your perspective?
Yes, I would. I think it's a fascinating question because I've been in large and small organizations, and I think when you're in a smaller organization as a leader, you can argue that it's even a different, more complex form of leadership because your modeling and your day-to-day interactions are so important. Whereas in larger organizations, some of the symbolic leadership and the ways that you model things on a bigger scale become more important. So it's something we're going to talk about in our leadership class, and it's a fascinating question. How does leadership change according to the amount of contact and size of your organization? So
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. So there's another really interesting question that Bridget, when you want to read this one, this is great.
Sure. Does UC Davis have an e-vehicle charging parking on site where this class is held?
I love this question. I've never gotten this question. And the answer is yes, we do. This class is, our teaching facility is in Midtown Sacramento. Many people may have seen it from Business 80. It's the Sutter Square Galleria. And it does have a charging station on the second floor. And so I'm so happy to be able to say, you know, UC Davis is a very green campus, and we're very proud about our alternative fuel programs here on campus. And so I'm glad to be able to tell you, if you've got an electric vehicle, you can be charging while you are in class.
Next question, will career development be part of this program?
So this program is really focused on your leadership skills. And so the 8 sessions are really going to focus in on where do you want to grow as a leader, and the coaching will be really about your career development from that perspective. So I think that's the way that I would think about it from, you know, if in working with your coach, is there a next job that you have in mind that you really need to enhance your leadership skills in order to get to? So I think it's supportive of your career development in that way.
Okay, another question, can the program and classes be used towards other programs like MBA?
So this program is not offered for academic credit. This is a program that is really designed for people to use the sessions, use the sessions like a laboratory. And the instructors are there to guide you and facilitate your learning, as are the coaches, but there's no paper that you have to turn in. We don't evaluate you in terms of that more traditional academic environment where we're really assessing, you know, your homework. This is really about the practical side of leadership and how to advance that.
Great. I have another question. How much leadership experience do people in the program typically have?
Okay, so I think that we've answered that a little bit, but I think that typically we will have people who have been, I mean, the majority of people who are going through the program will have been managing for at least 5 years. But I will tell you that every cohort, we have someone who's been leading and managing people for 20 years. And they're at a stage of their career where they're really thinking about, how do I leave a legacy? You know, how do I really set up other people to be leaders behind me? And so they're thinking about those kinds of issues as they're going through the program. And we also have people who are brand new to leadership. You know, they've been leading at that level for maybe less than a year, and they're really trying to get that framework of what is it, how can I think as a leader in this role and really be more effective. So, you know, I think we do really have some diversity in the class, which I think makes it a really interesting, an interesting experience for everyone. All right, so I think, oh wait, no, we got one more question here.
What roles do the coaches play in the program, and how does the time spent with them fit into the program schedule?
So the coaches work with each participant gets assigned to one of the coaches, and the coaches have a live coaching session, 2 live coaching sessions actually, with each participant in the program. The first coaching session is usually focused in on your 360 results. What meaning are you making of the results that you've gotten, and what do you want to do with those results? And the coach will support you in coming up with an action plan, maybe giving you some additional resources to help support you in moving forward. And the second coaching session ends up being, you know, a check-in. You know, how is it going? What are you trying? What are you learning? And that coach is really your partner in the program to support you. And the timing of that, each coach that, you know, you're assigned to a coach, that coach will have a number of time slots available, and you just sign up for the time slot that is most convenient for your schedule. So we try to keep it really easy for our busy leaders to get the coaching that they need. So I think that wraps up our questions. I want to just take a moment and see if Paul Porter or Stephanie Flood want to add any final words of wisdom about the program.
Yeah, I would love to. I would just say that at this point, when I went through the webinar last fall, I was thinking, how am I going to take this time away? This is going to be so hard, and I need to be at the office, and I need to be here for people. And while it was hard, it absolutely was. I can't say it wasn't. It was also one of the most worthwhile things I've ever done. And I got so much out of it, and I continue to learn from it daily. So it is worth making the time to do it.
I think that's such a great message. And one of the questions that we often get is, you know, can I miss one session, you know, in this program and still complete it? And, you know, I've got a busy schedule, and I know I have to go to this conference or this sales event or what have you. And I always encourage people to, as much as you can, apply to the program with the intention of making every session. Because it is so rare that we give ourselves that time and space to really reflect on not just everything that we have to do, but how are we approaching what it is that we have to do as leaders, and can we be more effective, and can we actually work on better problems, you know, as leaders, because we've become more effective, you know. And so give yourself that gift of really setting that intention. And I think, Stephanie, you really did. And I congratulate you on that. So I've pulled up the slide. I want everyone to know, if you've got any further questions, feel free to email me. My email address is slhuntsman@ucdavis.edu. And this link here, if you're thinking right now, this program is absolutely the right one for me, I want to show you, you click on extension, extension.ucdavis.edu/executive, and it will pull you right to our website, and there's this apply now button, and you click on that apply now button, and that gives us all of your information. And we review that really quickly, usually within a day, and get back to you, and then you're ready to enroll. And with that, I just want to thank, Bridget for helping to support this program, running this webinar for us. And Paul Porter, thank you for leading this session with that fun quiz. And Stephanie, thanks so much for sharing your experience. And we look forward to seeing many of you in our executive program. Take care and have a good night.
Take care.